Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining. It is one of the most exciting nights of the weekend, of the week. I wish it was the weekend. It is Tuesday. Before we get started, I'd just like to say that tonight is really for education and informational purposes only. Peter is going to chat with us about the TDOS syndrome and questions and answers maybe at the end. But before we get started, I'd just like to say that we are not intending to treat, cure, heal, or diagnose any sickness or illness. We are here for information purposes only, and maybe a little entertainment because he's pretty fun, and he gives a great chat. But before we do get started, my name is Sondra Austin. I live in British Columbia, Canada, and I met Peter a couple years ago, and he helped me understand more about TDOS. It's an acronym that stands for Toxicity, Deficiency, Being Overweight, and Stress. And those are the four cofactors that are undermining everybody's quality of life potential. And what I learned from Peter helped me personally have this incredible transformation, a physical transformation. I was going through some things at the time, and it was mind blowing. It was eye opening. It was incredible information and simple, super, super simple. And all I did was exactly what he told me. And my body did exactly what he said it would. It had this incredible transformation. So I would like to turn it over to Nicole really quickly because I know she has a couple things that she would like to say, and then we'll get this party started. So Nicole, do you want to unmute your mic? Or maybe I'll ask to unmute and you can unmute. Are you multitasking?
There we go.
Hi. Yeah.
I think that if people have not already, maybe how many of you, just raise hands, that have not heard Peter speak before, been to one of his live presentations or been on before? Okay, great. We've got a few. Well, with that, then I want to let you know a little bit of backstory, and I will see how quickly I can do this. I want you to know that Peter Greenlaw, we've been friends for, it's got to be 18 years. And I think that Peter, I've watched his journey unfold. And when I tell you that he's an author of 4 books and a researcher, I want you to get out of the box of thinking that, oh yeah, an author and a researcher of research. And I'll clarify researcher in a moment, but it isn't just that he goes and checks out research and then goes and writes a book or tells you his opinion of what he thinks about a subject, like his first book, which was phenomenal, Why Diets Are Failing Us, and which I'd love to hear, like the main thing that was the nugget out of that book, Peter. If you could tonight just give us that main nugget. But anyway, so when you think of someone that's an author, especially with something like toxicity, deficiency, overweight, stress, especially those 4 topics, or why diets are failing us, that they would go find out some facts and they would build their whole opinion, a lot of opinion and a lot of perspective. That's not what Peter Greenlaw has done. Peter Greenlaw took a very passionate journey on in his life, a purposeful journey in his life after losing his mother to complications from obesity. And when he found the solutions to that, of what really had happened to his mother, it set him on this trajectory. And you know what a trajectory is? It's like, man, you're going in a whole new direction. And when Peter went in this whole new direction, it was out of researching the researchers. He started researching the research and then researching the researchers out of those 4 topics. And it's now unfolded to a medical syndrome. It actually is a trademark medical syndrome, TDOS. And I happen to have, it's not that I'm doing a plug, but yes, I am doing a plug because you got to read this. The TDOS syndrome. And then along with that, TDOS solutions. Everything's backwards in the camera. But anyway, you get the drift. And that's number 2 and number 3 out of his 4 books. The 4th one is the third brain. So I want you to just know that when Peter researches the researchers, it's not only that. I'm gonna have you think up out of the box again. It's the top level, the top tiers of each of those categories, those researchers. He doesn't just go for, oh, okay, here's some research. isn't this cool? Isn't this interesting? Or this is really good. He goes for the top tier, the top level, the top researchers, the most accredited scientists, microbiology chemists. I mean, they've got names longer than if you put everybody together on your block and line their names up together. Anyway, you get my drift about that. But so it's the top level of the research of researchers. And so, I mean, someone that has lived passionately for our cause and how this has unfolded over 20 years now. We all have the privilege of benefiting from someone going and gathering that kind of information, that level of research and information in those 4 topics and bringing it together. So I want to introduce you to Peter Greenlaw, a very good friend of mine and Sondra's and now all of you. And I want Peter, of course, he's going to go through the TDOS tonight and the syndrome behind it, the solutions. But I kind of want to, we've got some people really interested in taking their fitness, Peter, to the next level tonight, and they even start, they even begin with their fitness goals right along with their, their other health goals, because it is part of it, but they're committed to fitness. We've got some people on like that and tonight, but some of those people really haven't even heard about TDOS, Peter. So we want to make sure that you cover that. But I thought that a great question would be to start off with, if you can keep it in mind here, is what was the big nugget? One question, you don't have to answer it right away, but one of the biggest nuggets out of why diets are failing us. And that would be anything that you tell us will be incredible. So I want to be quiet, let Peter have it. We love you. Everybody
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me tonight. And I want to just start with just a couple of things so you understand the ground rules. Nicole really did an excellent job of sort of outlining this. And it is true that they call me the researcher of the researchers, and I'm humble enough to say I'm not the expert, but I became an expert on the experts. So you have to understand that when I talk about these researchers, I physically went and met them. In some cases, I spent inordinate amounts of time with them where they would begin to teach me, because you have to understand when I started 19 and a half years ago, there'd never been a study done on a human being whether or not we were storing chemicals in basically our visceral fat. I'll go into that in just a moment, but I want to give you the context. And in scientific discovery, the very first thing, and that's how why diets came about, or why diets are failing us came about. But the very first thing I learned as becoming a researcher was you've got to understand the magnitude of the whole problem before you can ever think about, do I need a solution, or is there a solution out there? And the problem is, I was on with a lady just a little while ago. Here's a good way to think about it. I'm going to say something, and maybe it'll make all of you mad, but I don't care, because again, your opinion to me is none of my business, okay? You came on this call voluntarily. So you heard the old expression, you can't take a round peg and put it in a square hole. So basically what they've done with diets, they take the round peg, they put it over the square hole, and they've given you a bigger hammer. And the harder you hit the round peg, it doesn't go in the hole. So something was wrong. I mean, you realize that today, at least in the States, we have 75% of America overweight, 42% are obese. We have more diets, nutrition, exercise programs than ever before. And the fundamental flaw in all of that, that's backed up again by 5 peer-reviewed clinical studies now, there's a 6th one that'll be coming out. And basically what the researchers are now saying, that everything they thought they knew about diet, nutrition, and exercise was 100% wrong. Because you see, our food today, and I wrote about this when I published Why Diets Are Failing Us, which was a bestseller on Amazon in 5 categories in the first week. So I guess we did a pretty good job. And that is that our food today is calorie dense and nutritionally bankrupt. And if you look at any diet, at the end of the day, it's some form of lowering calories. Well, a couple things you need to know. A, the body can't count calories. The body doesn't give a damn about a calorie. And the calorie isn't what matters. It's what's in the calorie. It's the nutritional density. And so why diets are failing us, there's a headline on the back. It says the enemy is not calories, it's toxins. And if we think about it, which you got to understand, when I started, no one was even talking about it. It wasn't until 4 years later in 2006, Mount Sinai Medical School in New York did the first study on human beings, and they went, lo and behold, we're storing these chemicals inside us, herbicides and pesticides and Scotch guard and Teflon. How many of you know that Teflon is now, they estimate, in 99% of the people in the world have Teflon in their bodies. Hello? That doesn't sound too good to me, you know? There's actually a medical condition now. It's called auto intoxication. And that's not from having too many gin and tonics. But what the chemicals are doing as they enter our body, the body, to protect us, is taking the chemical and stuffing it inside a fat cell. And if you think of a fat cell like a balloon, the chemical is like the air in a balloon. Because if you look around, it's not just that people are overweight. My God, they're getting so fat. Well, the fat cells are expanding. It's like that chemical is making the fat cell get bigger. And I had someone this morning tell me, well, you know, of course, a pound of muscle weighs more than a pound of fat. Scientific impossibility. No, a pound of fat and a pound of muscle weigh the same. But fat takes up 10 times the volume of muscle. Now you add chemicals to the fat cell. Now it's even worse. Okay. So in why diets are failing us, what I concluded was that, because by the time I wrote the book, the studies have been starting to happen where they were looking at people. And that's why I said the enemy is not calories, it's toxins. And now, you know, years later, the evidence is absolutely clear. Everybody on this call tonight, you'd have between 1,000 and 2,000 chemicals embedded in your fat cells. So our bodies are literally evolving to deal with the chemicals that we're breathing, drinking, eating, okay? So the TDOS syndrome, as both of them pointed out, Sondra and Nicole, toxicity, nutritional deficiency, being overweight, and stress. And all those four come together to undermine any strategy you have to maximize your quality of life. Because what I say to you all, with all due respect, you have no idea how bad you feel right now until you realize how good you can feel. And that goes for my athletes, any of your athletes, because I've worked, trust me, one of my friends is Beyonce's personal trainer. And of course, he's Mr. Know-it-all and all this. And, you know, but anyway, I put him on the protocol, and in 14 days, he went from 12% body fat to 5% body fat, gained 5 pounds of lean muscle. Well, that was the end of that. He never questioned me again. But you just have to understand. So as we eat, we breathe the chemical, the body, we're evolving to survive so that the body takes the chemical and stuffs it inside a fat cell. And no dieting, no nutrition, no exercise program has ever been shown to remove the fat in which the toxins are stored, except what you guys are all doing. That's clinically proven to remove, and where we store the chemicals. So you got 2 layers of fat. You have the outer layer that's called adipose, but then you have the underlying, your hard fat, that's called visceral fat. That's what surrounds our organs. That's where the toxins are residing, which is really scary because they're that much closer to your kidney and your heart and your liver and your brain and all these other organs in the body. So visceral fat is where these toxins are stored. So again, unless you have a strategy that will allow you to shrink away the visceral fat in which the chemicals are stored, good luck with anything you're trying. Do Pilates, lift weights, run 50 miles. I don't care what the hell you're doing, pardon my French, but you're making no impact. As a matter of fact, there have been studies done that there's no toxins in sweat. So even on a day like this, if you ran 50 miles, you're losing no toxins in sweat. So that's, again, a big myth, right? So in the first book, Why Diets Are Failing Us, what I proved was that the whole concept of dieting, now it was controversial 11 years ago when I said this whole concept made no sense to me. Calories in, calories out. Completely debunked now, completely wrong. And again, for some of my friends, maybe they're not going to be my friends, but I just give you the science, okay? The worst thing you could ever do in your life is diet and exercise. What? Yes. Think about it. You're lowering your caloric intake. And what they don't tell you, you're lowering your nutritional intake. And now you're asking your body to exercise and do more. Guess what happens in your body? Number one, you burn lean muscle mass first. And as a result of that, what happens? You slow your metabolism down. So that's why when people go back to eating normal, they gain all their weight back. So there's people, and I'm not against exercise. Please don't hear me say that. but it's now proven as a long-term weight loss management strategy. No way. It does not work. Because again, the scientists that I work with say 90% of a workout is the nutrition. 10% is the workout. And working out, it's all about your recovery. How quickly can I recover from it? Okay. So why diets are failing us? Those were the two principles. The real enemy was toxins that we're storing in our fat cells. And the whole concept of counting calories, calories in, calories out, exercising calories was completely wrong. And at the time, had a lot of critics. Haha, don't have any critics anymore because I was right and they were wrong. Isn't that funny how that works? You know, I always liken it to, 350 years ago, the smartest people in the world said what? The world is flat. I didn't believe that. And I was driven by the fact that, I lost my mom. She died basically of dieting herself to death. She was morbidly obese my whole life. And that's one of the things that really spurred me on to become a researcher. And I gotta say, there's gotta be a better way. My mom did every diet that existed. Atkins, Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig, the Cabbage Patch diet, the grapefruit. I mean, if there was a diet, she did it. And she literally killed herself dieting, ended up with high blood, had a massive heart attack and stroke. And if I could have been on a call like this 22 years ago, I honest to gosh believe, I can't prove it, that my mom might have left another 8 or 10 years, but she would have done anything to lose weight. And again, so what are we doing today? Round peg, square hole, get a bigger hammer. Don't think that's working too well from what I can see. So out of why diets are failing us came the concept of the TDOS syndrome. Now, you have to understand, I've done over 1,500 lectures all over the world. And when I discovered or came upon the TDOS syndrome, which I discovered it, I had been talking about individually toxicity, nutritional deficiency, being overweight and stress. But what made it a syndrome, when I realized, I said, wait a minute, is there an interconnectivity here? And I'm going to explain that to you right now. So toxicity is driven by nutritional deficiency. Okay. As a matter of fact, that's a major deficiency is a major contributing factor why so many people are overweight. What? This guy's crazy. No, I'm not. Let me explain it to you. So tonight, when we all go to sleep, as long as you don't eat too late at night, your body, because you've pretty much digested your food by the time you go to sleep, the minimum that digestive tract has all but suspended itself, it automatically turns on a natural detox machinery in our body, 100%. So when you sleep, you're detoxifying, you're rebuilding, you're repairing, you're rejuvenating, and you're definitely detoxing your body, okay? So what's the magic formula? The magic formula is you suspend the digestive tract and you turn on this mechanism, okay? Now, but deficiency, why is that so important? Well, let me give you 3 quick examples. So 30 years ago, eat 1 orange. Today, 30 years later, you have to eat about 8 oranges to equal the nutrition of 1 orange. An apple, it's 8 to 12 apples from 30 years ago today, nutritionally, not calories, nutrition, okay? And that's the only thing you should ever care about. This whole thing about counting calories is dumb. It's like stupid. It's like, what? No, we need to look at nourishment, okay? But this is the one that blew me away. Cornell University did a study in 1953, basically a bowl of spinach. And they said that the nutritional value of spinach in that time period has decreased by 4,300%. Let me put it in layman's terms to you. That means today you'd have to have about 40 bowls of spinach to equal 1 bowl of spinach from 1953. And you wonder why you're tired, you're stressed out. See, the problem is our body has been programmed in something called metabolic inflexibility. 90% of the people in North America have this condition. It simply means that what we become sugar and simple carbohydrate burners. Like that's our energy, okay? The problem is it's really inefficient. So when you burn through it, what does your body crave? More sugar, more carbohydrates. So it's this vicious cycle. And we know, for example, Harvard Medical School did a study last year proving that sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. Now, why do the food manufacturers use sugar and simple carbs? Because it's way cheaper than nutrition. They don't want to put 70 minerals in food. They don't want to put the botanicals in it. Really expensive. So they do this cheap stuff. And to show you how shocking it is, our body stores 2,000 calories a day in sugar and simple carbohydrates. We store 100,000 calories in fat. What do you think we're supposed to burn? So the key is, how do I get from burning sugar and simple carbs, metabolic inflexibility, to metabolic flexibility? Well, that's your 48 hours. And I'll talk about that in a moment. But let me finish up on TDOS first. So the key with what you're doing in the 48-hour detox is this, that essentially, if you look at it, on your shake days before you get to detox, you're doing a new term that I was taught just recently called nutritional partitioning. It's a fancy word meaning when you're doing, a shake day with regular food, etc., you actually, because the shakes have so much nutrition in them, you're stockpiling additional nutrients. So that's what nutritional partitioning means. So you've kind of got this warehouse. So when you go on a detox day, where you're doing the aloe vera and the snacks and the other elements, you're at about 340 calories. And it's pretty much liquid. So guess what? Your body, your brain goes, well, you've suspended the digestive tract. Let's turn on the detox mechanism. That's exactly how it works. But let me be honest. If you did a fast for the first 22 hours, exactly the same thing would happen. And what happens when you're not introducing, simple carbs and sugar, your body will burn through the stored sugar in your liver called glycogen. But at that 22-hour mark, that's where these two separate, a fast. And what you're technically doing, it's not a cleanse, by the way. It never was. You're doing intermittent nutritional fasting. Very important that you understand that. Because what happens at the 22-hour mark on a fast, my right hand is muscle and my left hand is fat. Well, on a fast, there's no nutrition. So once it's burned through the sugar in the body, guess what it does? It ignores the fat and burns the muscle. Proven in clinical studies. Not my opinion, clinical studies, okay? So obviously then what happens, now your body's in starvation mode, you can't burn fat. You're burning muscle. That's the downside of every diet fasting program ever, that in the long run, you lose lean muscle mass. And in so doing, you slow your metabolism down. So when you go back to eating normal, you can't burn as many calories. Pretty simple. But on what you're doing at that 22-hour mark, when the body comes to the choice point, you've had nutritional partitioning left over from the shake day combined. See, even though it's 340 calories, it's probably the equivalent nutritionally to a couple thousand calories of food. And remember, your body doesn't care about a damn calorie. It only cares about the nourishment. It only cares about the nutrition. And why this works at 22 hours, when your body comes to that choice point on intermittent nutritional fasting, okay? What does it do now? It ignores the muscle and it burns the fat in which the toxins are stored out your body. And that's why we have you weigh and measure. If you're not measuring, you're cheating yourself. I would say the scale's for vanity, but the inches are for science. That, you measure basically, and there's a chart, from your neck all the way down. And the real areas that I'm concerned about are basically, up here, your diaphragm, your stomach, and your waist. Although you're going to lose it in other areas. Now, why am I so concerned about that? Because that area of your body, that's where the liver and the kidneys are. And what's the body going to do? It's going to protect those organs because they're the biggest filters. So when and a huge disease happening now in adults, even who never drank, is fatty liver disease, which is the precursor to what? Cirrhosis of the liver, which is what alcoholics get. I just learned this yesterday. I went, oh my gosh, that is unreal. And that's what they're finding, because the liver is the biggest filter. So when a toxin comes in, the liver is presented with it. And what does it do? It encapsulates the toxin inside the liver in a fat cell. That's what fatty liver disease is. Your liver should not have really any fat at all in it. But because of all these chemicals, and then what happens when the liver is completely like full, it now offloads the toxins out now into your body, around your brain, your kidney, your liver, breast tissue in women, prostate in men. I mean, it's ladies and gentlemen, this is just science. I'm not making, this is really what's going on. So the key becomes at 22 hours, your body is going to do what? It's going to shift from metabolic inflexibility to what? Metabolic flexibility, which means now you're burning fat, proven in the clinical studies. That's why I have never, ever encouraged anyone to do a 24-hour detox. It's got to be 48 hours. And the dirty little secret is the first 24 hours is always the most challenging. The second one is like you're riding a bike down a hill. It's so much easier because you got to understand you're making the switch from burning sugar and simple carbs to burning what? Fat. And if you got 50 times more energy with the fat storage than in sugar and carbohydrates. That's why most people on that fifth morning, they say, wow, I can't believe how much energy. Yeah, energy, because you've tapped into this, volcano of energy. So the deficiency, now, why is it so important? Because on a diet or in a regular fast, your body is not going to go from that metabolic inflexibility to metabolic flexibility because you're in starvation mode. So the body, what does it revert to? It goes right to muscle. It's just a fact. That's just how it works. So TDOS is being driven by the deficiency of the food that we're consuming. Do you know they did a study on obese children? This was like 7 or 8 years ago. And they found that 40% of these obese kids they tested were basically starving to death. They were suffering from nutritional deficiency. So it wasn't about how many calories they were consuming. It was about how much nutrition. And look around at our youth, look around at our kids. It's not just that we don't have, recess anymore, even before COVID, or they're just eating junk food. No, they're suffering the same thing. See, every living, breathing person on the planet has TDOS syndrome. How could you not have it? And watch this. So the deficiency allows what? The toxins to be stored in our fat cells, which leads to the O called obesity. And those three now do what? They increase stress in your body. And stress, in case you didn't know, the dirty little secret, we all need stress if we're going to be chased by a bear or, a robber or something, but it's only short-lived. So the body produces this hormone called cortisol, which basically manages stress. But long-term chronic stress, like many people are suffering right now because of COVID, okay? But that long-term stress of the raise in cortisol, what does it do? Number one thing, it shuts your immune system down. Number two, it prevents your body from burning fat. And ladies, you're probably not going to like to hear this. It also is decreasing the density of your bones and it's shrinking our brains. That's what cortisol does when it's persistent, when it's long-term. So think about it. Toxicity driven by deficiency, causing overweight and increasing our stress even more. Now, here's the dirty little secret. Athletes, some of you are probably thin, et cetera. Well, I'm immune. No, you're not. In a huge study called Just Because You're Thin Doesn't Mean You're Healthy, when they took 300 really fit adults and did brain scan or did MRIs on their their whole body around all the internal organs, which makes sense, they saw this white halo of this toxic fat. It's called the body's toxic burden. Many of you heard the term a couple of years ago, skinny fat. What that means is there are people that appear thin on the outside, but when you look at their percentage of fat in relationship to their muscle, believe it or not, they'd be considered obese. You probably have heard the term BMI, body mass index, which is the relationship between how much fat you have and how much muscle you have. You have to understand that's why what you're doing is not a diet. Diets don't do this. Diets can't do this. I mean, think about it. You go on a diet, you're lowering the calories. Now you've lowered the nutrition. You think you're going to go 48 hours on it doesn't work. It makes all the sense in the world. So really, I tell people all the time, when people ask me, what do you do? I never talk about, I'm with a nutritional company or weight loss. I say, have you ever heard of the TDOS syndrome? Well, 100% of the time they're going, what in the hell is that? And once I, start it, I used to have, well, before COVID, I've done 1,500 lectures all over the world. And I was speaking 4 nights a week. And basically I haven't been live for 28 months. Okay. But I used to have a joke because I flew so much. I've flown like 2 million miles just on United Airlines, right? Meeting these world-class experts and flying all over the world. And I always used to say, when I get on the plane, 2 things happen. The good news is 100%, I can totally fall asleep before they even push back from the gate. Thank goodness I can do that. It's like a stupid human trick because all that flying, it makes it much more palatable. Unless someone sits down next to me. And if they happen to say, what do you do? I know there's no chance in hell I'm going to sleep. And the minute I say, we ever heard of the TDOS syndrome, it's normally 1, 2, 3 hour conversation. And so it is 1,000,000% the most powerful thing. But you've got to understand, I have a registered trademark with the US Patent Office. It's a medical condition. Only people don't even know it exists. People don't know they have it. They just accept the fact I got aches and pains. I'm getting older. I'm overweight. I can't sleep. And they think that's normal. So what we've done, we've accepted what I call these less than lifestyles. Even if you work out, because I always tell my athletes, I said, it's not about where you are now. It's about where you could be. So as far as TDOS goes, toxicity, deficiency, overweight, and stress, you guys have the only proven solution that's ever been found. This is removing that toxic fat and the toxins, and that's why people lose so much weight. But the weight they're losing is not lean muscle, is not water. And the other thing they've now proven, and it'll be coming out in the latest clinical studies, 100% this is lowering inflammation. And the inflammation is the new buzzword in the medical community now. The underlying cause of every disease pretty much known to man is inflammation. So if you can deal with those 4 factors, wow. Because I tell people all the time, don't do this to lose weight. That is the wrong reason. That's like a throw-in. It's about energy, lowering your stress, sleeping better at night, mental acuity, less aches and pains, and even athletic performance, where you can even be more fit than ever before in your life, right? And let's address one thing. If I teach you nothing else tonight, this will be really significant, okay? So my colleague, Dr. Marco Ruggiero, probably one of the top oncologists in the world, and also a molecular biologist, who I wrote my 4th book they mentioned Your Third Brain. And it's not a trick title. It's not science fiction. It's real. And of course, shameless plug for me. I would encourage all of you to read it, but your jaws will drop open and you'll think that we made it up and it's science fiction, only it's not. Okay. But when we were writing the book, this is the true story, because people love the backstories to how did some of this stuff happen, right? So he lived at the time, he was living in Italy, and he came over to the United States, and we spent the whole month of August together, not just writing the book, but we were going to oncology centers, because he's like one of the top oncologists in the world. And I had a lot of connections in the cancer community. Anyway, that's all. So I was sitting there and I had a canister of my shake, and he said, hey, can I have a canister of that? And I said, sure. I had no idea what he was going to do. So unbeknownst to me, he took the very shake that you guys are doing and went to Whole Foods and Trader Joe's, that's what we have in the States, and bought 19 other of the top brands of shakes. And I'm going to give you all a lesson, and so it blew my mind when he taught me this. So number 1, this is a dichotomy. Protein, we can't live without, and yet it's a poison to our body. Let me repeat that. Protein is something you can't live without, but it's a poison. When I say a poison, let me explain it a little bit better. Any protein, whether it comes from an animal or a plant, contains 20 amino acids. And what happens is when you ingest a protein from a plant or an animal, the body basically breaks open the protein, like a walnut, and extracts the 20 amino acids. And you probably heard the term branched chain aminos, which simply means those 20, the body reconfigures those amino acids in these long chains called branched chain amino acids. Now, why does the body do that? Because the body cannot read at the gene level a foreign protein. It looks at a plant or an animal protein. It doesn't know what it is, but it can read the amino acids. So to be like, if I was to talk to you and I said, hey, I just finished Libro, and you're going, what the hell's that? Well, if I tell you it's book in English and Libro, so the body literally has to translate these amino acids and rearrange them. So at the gene level, the gene can read the configuration. So we have 22,000 genes. We make 22,000 human protein. The only way, not a fat, not a carb, the only way you get amino acids is in a protein. Now I was going to tell you about, okay, well, why is it bad for you? Because you'd think, well, that's great. I'm going to eat plants, or I'm going to eat animals. I get all 20 amino acids. The only thing that matters to your body is what percentage of, of 100% of all 20 amino acids are being used at the gene level to remake us. Everybody on this call, you're going to remake the lining of your stomach twice this month. You're going to rebuild your livers twice this year, and you're going to remake every cell in your body about every 7 years. The only way that occurs, not with fats, not with carbs, not with protein, with amino acids. That's why they're called the building blocks of life. We wouldn't even exist without amino acids, okay? So the significance is this. There's a scientific study that was discovered about 8 years ago called net nitrogen utilization. All it means in layman's terms is when they now can measure, when you ingest a protein from a plant or an animal, what percentage of 100% of the 20 amino acids, you're getting all 20, but the percentage matters, is used by your body. Well, this makes my vegan friends mad, but it's just science. So you take something like a pea protein, a plant-based protein, the absorption of that is only 10%. 90% is actually turned into toxic waste that your kidneys have to deal with. Animal proteins are better. They're 30%, but only 30. So 70% of what you're ingesting with steak, chicken, fish, liver, whatever it might be, is actually turned into toxic waste that your kidneys have to get rid of. That's why when people are in kidney dialysis, they really want to limit the protein, because the protein itself can't be used by the human body, only the amino acids. Now, so why did my colleague take the shakes, all 20? Well, he took them because he ran an analysis, because whey protein, guess what? It's a protein. What does that mean? It means it contains all 20 amino acids. So what he did first, he took all 20 of the shakes, and this is how I made them for 15 or 16 years before he taught me this. And in cold water, after 5 minutes, some of the national brands, their absorption, 0 to 100, was 5%. There were a couple at 8, one at 10, there was a couple at 12. Our shake, the very one you're taking today, in cold water, it was 15%. That meant 85% was what the body had to get rid of. Then he did something really strange. Of course, now I don't think it's strange, but it was then. He took all 20 shakes. He had a blender. He put 8 ounces of warm water, ideally 100 degrees. As a matter of fact, a lot of people get a thermometer. He put the shake mix in. He mixed the shakes. He took the lids off all 20 and let them sit for 45 minutes and then retested them. Well, after the 45 minutes, 19 out of 20 shakes, whatever their number was, it didn't change, except our shake, the shake you guys are taking. It's called incubation. It went from an absorption of 15% to 90%, the highest absorption of any protein ever tested. But there were some more things that happened. Number one, all the whey protein, all the casein protein, all the milk protein was completely gone. And the sugar went down by 30%. Now, wait a minute. All 20 shakes he made in hot water. All 20 shakes, he let them sit for 45 minutes. None of the other shakes, whatever their number was, it didn't change. If it was 5% or 8% or 10%, it didn't change at all. So it wasn't the hot water and it wasn't the time. It had to be something else. The something else is exactly what's on your label. There are 5 what are called protease enzymes. And those, now, how did my colleague know about it? Because he'd worked for John Vane of England in 1983, who won the Nobel Prize in Medicine for his work on enzymes. And he knew that those enzymes were only activated temperature and time. He had nothing to do with the company. They didn't pay him. It was completely unrelated. Okay. And I tell people all the time, if you want to make it in cold water, I did it for 15 years. It basically saved my life. There's nothing wrong with that. But the difference was in that our shake, those 5 protease enzymes were in none of the other shakes. And without those protease enzymes, the same thing would happen. In other words, whatever your number was, it wouldn't change. Now, for my athletes out there, okay, you all, I'm sure if you're working out, et cetera, you know that one of the amino acids that builds lean muscle in your body is called leucine. So can you imagine now when you're getting 90% of all 20 amino acids, including leucine? Do you think you're going to make more muscle mass with 15% or even steak, chicken, fish at 30% versus 90%? There's nothing like this. Trust me, I've had people, I get inundated. People, this shake and that shake and Dr. So-and-so formulated, et cetera. And I look at it and go, nice try. Because it's an imposter. It's not that it's bad, but it's not this, you know? So the most critical thing that you can learn from this is that the other thing, I'm sorry, I wanted to finish. Independent research, nothing to do with me. Do you know what one of the main things scientifically they say that you can do to boost your immune system? I didn't think you'd know. Whey protein. And here's why. In our cell, okay, the cells make this really powerful molecule which boosts the immune system and destroys toxins. It's called glutathione. And the body can only make it with 3 out of those 20 amino acids, specifically cysteine, glutamate, and glycine. So now think about again in a COVID world. If I can get 90% of all 20 amino acids, including, leucine, cysteine, glutamate, glycine, and leucine to build muscle, I'm all about it. I don't want to disparage anybody. If you want to make your shake in cold water and drink it in 15 minutes, that's great. But as a researcher, who my colleague did the study, nothing to do with the company, I mean, shame on me if I don't at least share it with you. I'm not trying to convince you. I tell people all the time, I'm not going to convince you of anything. I'm going to give you the science and you make up your own mind what you want to do. But the results are staggering. Once we started to do this about 4 or 5 years ago, we immediately started to see people losing like twice as much weight as they'd ever lost before. Well, it makes sense. And also keep in mind, at the end of that 45 minutes, you're not drinking a shake anymore. You're drinking pure liquid amino acids. And if you understand the human physiology about how the amino acid, we have to have it to remake ourselves. I'm kind of thinking, if you're going to build a house, it takes 10,000 bricks. So if you make it in cold water, you got 1,500 bricks. If you make it in the warm water, let it incubate, you got 9,000 bricks. I kind of like the idea of a 2-story house. Now, maybe I still need some more bricks, but at least most of it's there. But the other thing to think about is boosting your immune system without even getting political. Why wasn't it always a great strategy to boost our immune system? Did we have to have COVID to tell us that? No. So it's a strategy. And you can see now, and I'm not going to get political. I'm not going to tell you my opinions. I'm just saying, here's the evidence, because I'm a scientist, right? So people are double vaccinated, boosted. I have neighbors that for the second time since January, they got COVID again. Well, of course, they're not doing this because, who am I? I'm just their neighbor. I'm not this, wild-eyed researcher that I'm crazy. I know I am. It's okay. I don't care. And again, the science is so profound. So if we go back to TDOS, the shake is your fundamental. That's your foundation to supply you with that nutritional partitioning. Because keep in mind, the other part I should have said, see, when you're detoxing and you've got, your aloe vera and the other things, you got about 340 calories. But what you got to understand, you've already digested that's stored in this warehouse. So your body doesn't have to digest it again. Remember what I said, in order to detox, you have to suspend digestion. So the body just comes over and grabs the nutrients and puts them in combination with what you're taking on a intermittent nutritional fasting day. So that's really kind of what I wanted to cover, Sondra and Nicole, but I'm happy to answer questions. I know it was a lot of stuff and I usually make people crazy. That's part of my job, but I want to make sure that we address any and all questions that they might have, because I think it's really important that at least you're aware. I'm not trying to convince you. You do whatever you want to do after this call tonight. That's up to you. I'm just telling you based on the science and based on what I've seen or what I've been taught. Because you have to understand, these world-class experts that I work with, they kind of reverse engineered what you're all consuming. And they pointed out to me, okay, this is what's missing from food. Go find it, Greenlaw. Well, it just so happened that everything they were talking about just so happened was in exactly what you're taking. So you got to understand, this happened after I'd already done it. I didn't know any of this. So when I'd go out and meet these researchers and they say, well, you know, you need minerals, you need these enzymes. I didn't know that. And then I kind of went back and I went, wait a minute, those enzymes are right there, you know? So go ahead, Sondra or Nicole, if we've got questions or chat or people want to unmute themselves and ask me, I'm more than happy to do it.
I'm sure there's going to be some questions because there's lots of people that haven't heard this before. So we'll look around and make sure that people are being addressed. But I just wanted to ask a question for people that might be thinking, when I talk to you, oh my gosh, it's almost coming up into 3 years that, you know, you said something to me that when I coach people, I tell them this, and it's not some of the time, it's all of the time. And so when we talk about intermittent nutritional fasting, and some people may be there may be a bit of a gray area, because coming in to taking these nutritionals, they may have been coached a certain way, maybe only once a month or maybe twice a month, and then that's it, then that's not good for you. So people can nutritional fast every week, correct?
Yeah, as long as on your, let's call them shake meal days, you increase the serving size. We want you to be up to around, I mean, that never happens on a diet. And the reason for that is after you've really done, say, your first 11 days, now your body is burning, it's really burning fat. And if you kept the caloric intake, which is the nutritional intake, if you didn't increase that, kind of the fire will go out or just about go out. So the point is that, I mean, I have a gentleman in Denver, he weighed 587, let's round it off to 600 pounds. And he went back to back to back for 20 months, where every week he was doing 48 hours. But in his 5 days in between, we had increased, you know, he's basic up to normal 1,800, 2,000 calories a day. Yeah. And in that 20 months, he lost 387 pounds with no loose skin and no surgery of any kind. No. So the reason that they said that, and I don't want to get in trouble here, but I probably will, because really, if you look at what the company had laid out, it was a shake, a meal, and a shake, and you were doing that. But even they said they don't want you doing more than, say, 48 hours in a row. Well, but I, with a doctor, and actually it was even approved by the company, we created this, we call them feast days. We're really starting on day 12. If you started from 0, your first 11 days, where you're going to do 2 48-hour intermittent nutritional fasts during your first 11 days. On day 12, we essentially double the serving size to ensure that you don't have this, because again, now your body's really efficient. And if you don't give it more fuel, you'll slow your metabolism down. And so they're right in that sense. If you were to follow shake, lunch, shake with those low, you know, really it's low nutritional intake for more than about 10 or 11 days, I completely agree. But that's not what we do. And that's obviously what I taught you and Nicole and you know, lots of other people that I was taught. But I developed it with a medical doctor and said, no, as long as you increase that fuel, you're okay. And we have the proof proving now that we're not slowing the metabolism down. People aren't losing lean muscle and they're not losing, you know, fat. And I'll give you just a little preview. For the first time ever, your company is doing the new clinical study that may be out in as early as March, was based not on all the studies up to that were based on a 24-hour detox. None of them were based on 48 hours until this one. And the results are staggering, the difference between 1 day and 2 days, because of exactly what I told you. because it takes you 22 hours before you ever get into fat burning.
Yeah.
And you got to understand, at the end of 24 hours, the minute, like if you had a shake, you put the fire out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's incredible. And so for those of you who are contemplating on boosting that or increasing the consistency of your intermittent nutritional fasting, just know I'm going into my 3rd year of intermittent nutritional fasting for 48 hours every week. 3 years, every week. Still surviving, still doing really well. But you know, and I just follow Peter's protocols, and he's trained and coached. So, and then really quickly, we do have a couple other questions, but I get this a lot, and other people probably do. We know how good we feel on day 2 of that nutritional fast. We're feeling great. We're energetic. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm not even starving. Can I do a 3rd day? I want to do a 3rd day. What are your thoughts on that 3rd day?
No, because again, you've kind of used up, you're at that point, if you went to a 3rd day, you definitely risk slowing your metabolism down. That's why I don't want you to do 3 days. It's very important to understand. What we want to avoid here see, I should have said that too. You understand on diets, when you lose weight, it's the wrong kind of weight. You're losing lean muscle mass and you're slowing the metabolism down. The key here is you want to avoid that at all costs, because then it's a negative effect. It's just like people that work out too much, you know, people really overwork out. All right. And it doesn't really help you. That's why I said for weight loss, and I'm not against, look, you can still exercise while you're doing this, but you don't need to kill yourself in the gym. You don't need to spend 3 hours on the Stairmaster, et cetera. But the idea on, you know, people, they put diet and, I mean, it's been around for forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But no one ever considered, well, wait a minute, what about the nutrients? How am I asking my body to put out more energy with less fuel? Well, then the body goes and burns lean muscle. That's what we now know in the new clinical studies.
Yep. Yeah. Fantastic. Any questions? Hands up or unmute?
Yeah, unmute.
Okay. So we have Deborah Baker. Go ahead, Deborah. I'll get to you, Nicole, your gal in the back.
Yes, thank you so much. And Peter, it's great to see you again. And thank you for this great information.
Sure.
I was wanting to share back with my team, when we are incubating, that does not change the fuel level. We don't want to call it calories. It doesn't change the fuel. It just changes the composition of the nutrients within. So we're maximizing or optimizing, really, and maximizing the protein and reducing down the sugars. Is that right? Am I getting that correct?
Well, kind of. Let me just do a little
great,
course
thank you.
correction. Okay. Number one, the key to life are the amino acids. Okay. So what happens when you incubate the shake, you're getting 90% of all 20 of those aminos. You also have eliminated, there's no more whey protein, there's no more casein protein, there's no milk protein. And in the chemical transformation in the 45 minutes, see, those enzymes also react with the sugars. So they take part of the sugar in a chemical transformation as they're extracting the amino acids out of the protein. So the sugar is lowered by approximately 30%, according to my colleague. But also, he even said, what you started with 45 minutes ago doesn't even resemble what's there after 45 minutes, because you're literally almost drinking pure liquid amino acids. Okay. And that's why people with lactose intolerance, with casein allergies, whey protein, and nothing's 100%. I always tell people, I had a lady this week in Denver that I started, and she was terrified. Oh my God, I can't do dairy and everything. I said, look, make a shake, incubate it, and drink like 2 ounces and wait an hour and see what happens. Bingo, nothing happened. And I said, then do another 2 ounces. Well, actually tomorrow's going to be her fifth morning. And she even said tonight, she said, oh my God, I am craving that shake tomorrow morning. I mean, she's already had 2 days of shakes and she had no problem whatsoever. But I promise you, if she tried to drink that without the incubation, there's no way she could have done it. And I always tell people, look, nothing's 100%. Let's be clear, okay? And I don't want to make that kind of a proclamation. I don't know. But you also understand in your shake, you have another enzyme called lactase. And lipase, I should say. And it acts the lactase works to break down the lactose that's in it. But you've got to understand, you've got almost no whey protein left to even break down. And that's why people, typically that have had real severe, dairy, whey protein, most of the time with whey protein, their allergy is to casein, which is one of the proteins contained within whey protein, if that makes sense to you.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Deborah?
Yes, it does. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Next.
When you say additional fuel, are you talking about more shake or what? I
No, I'm
didn't
talking-
follow that.
Okay, yeah, you're talking about the difference of getting 15% of the amino acids versus getting 90% of the amino acids. So you've massively increased the availability to your body of the amino acids, which is the only reason you eat a protein in the first place. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about increasing, because you're going from 15, remember, and this is true across the board for all of you. It's not what we eat or drink. It's only what we absorb. So that's what I'm talking about. So the absorption goes from 15% to 90%.
Right, I follow that.
Yeah.
I follow. I didn't know what you meant by additional fuel, like we have to do 2 shakes instead of 1 or something.
No, that's what thanks for the clarification. I mean, I made a mistake once. I just can't remember what it was. So I'm kidding. Yeah, but that was a great question, sir. Thank you very much for that. I'm glad we clarified it.
Mm-hmm.
Who
Nicole,
else?
Nicole has a question.
Go ahead.
She's muted.
Oh,
She's
go ahead, Nicole. Yes, Nicole.
Hi, Peter. It's not really Nicole. Deb's here, and my cell phone isn't picking up any signals because we got a snowstorm, by the way.
No kidding.
Morning.
I'm driving home in it after this, so whatever,
Well, if you need to stay the night, we probably know some common people because I see enough faces here that I feel like a hummingbird. I get to have a warm shake tomorrow because
you can have
in the night.
I drink them warm sometimes too. It won't hurt you at all. And also,
I know.
Let me say one other thing that's
Cool.
important.
I needed to know this stuff. This is so cool. I have family members that I won't shut up until they know this stuff, so I don't have to say it.
Beautiful.
You're on stage with me. Rock.
So for all of you, I want you to hear me clearly on this. You can let it sit for longer than 45 minutes. As a matter of fact, if someone drinks a shake and they're they still have a reaction, normally if they let the shake then incubate for 90 minutes and then try it, normally there's no problem whatsoever. Because after 45 minutes, you're at about 90 or 91% absorption, and it goes up a little bit if you let it go longer. But a lot of my athletes, what I'll tell them to do is make your shake before you go to the gym, have it there, let it incubate, even if it's a couple hours. But here's the key for athletes. You want to drink that shake in no more than 5 minutes after your workout. A lot of my world-class athletes, they'll actually drink their shake on the treadmill as they're doing their cool down. And why would you want to do that? Because that's the point when the muscles are screaming for those amino acids. And that begins so if you wait a half hour, you're not getting the full impact. So I just want everybody to understand that. So you can let it sit 2 or 3 hours if you want to. It's not going to hurt a thing. And always after you've let it sit, it's critically important you reblend the shake. And you can add ice and then you can drink it cold. So I want everybody to know that. That's something that I probably should. I forget things sometimes,
Peter, this is why you and I were on stage with Kirk. He can't talk. I can't chew. And you can pick up the pieces. And I'm visiting my coach for a few days.
Beautiful.
And it's snowing like a mother, and I can go feed my horse.
I know.
I go feed Nicole's horses and come back in and feed my face.
Well, nice to see you, and I'm glad you enjoyed the information. So,
I've been kind of a whisper in the back office or a fly on the wall. So
perfect.
I'm out of here. I got to use the little girl's room. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Cool. We've got
overshare. Anybody?
I know we've got some good questions in the chat. Sondra, do you want to address them? Go, honey.
I think I did address them. I answered them.
Okay.
I've been answering them on the side too.
All right.
Good.
So anybody else?
Oh, sorry. There was one. Oh, go ahead, Deanne. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Deanne.
I would love to hear your, and by the way, I am once again mesmerized. Thank you so much. I would love to hear you speak about the increase in human growth hormone with regards to the whole beautiful process that you're talking about.
Okay, yeah, so let me cover that, okay? So one of the things that I said was that in order, as a matter of fact, the only time we produce human growth hormone is when we're sleeping. Let's just start with that, okay? But let's back up. The reason it's so unhealthy to eat really late at night is if you ate at like 10 o'clock, you go to sleep, the first 3-4 hours while you're sleeping, you're still digesting. So you're robbing your body. You want that 6, ideally 8 hours of your body to be full on detox, rejuvenation, replenishment, including producing growth hormone. Now, the reason it's so critical to always end your day with a shake, incubated, because think about it. You're flooding your body with nutrition, not calories. So you're not impacting your digestive tract. Therefore, your body can do those processes, but it's got all this fuel. So it's going to be that much more efficient as you're sleeping. The other thing, that's why it's so critical to have a shake in the morning. These people that skip breakfast, they don't get it. By the time you wake up in the morning, you pretty much have used up all your fuel, all this nourishment, all those nutrients while you're sleeping. So your body is really craving that in the morning. So you give, that's why you always bookend. Shake before you go to bed, shake on shake days. Obviously on detox days, it's completely different. But that really assists the body. And there was a study done, this was 20 years ago, where they took a group and they proved that in this test group of like 20 people, that there was an increase in human growth hormone by about 20% in just the first 11 days. And that was before we knew about incubating the shakes and all these other wonderful things. That was just basically doing, you know, the standard, the shake and the detox, et cetera. So we have, and you're going to see, I can't tell you because I know I'd have to kill everyone. I know what's going to be in this study that's coming up. It's going to change the world. When you see what's been discovered, it is mind-boggling, mind-boggling. And everything that we thought we knew about this, but about diet, nutrition, exercise, is going to get turned on its head. I'm really excited about it. And you all are really going to benefit from this once this happens. I don't think there'd be anybody in the world that's going to look at these studies and think they would go on any other diet or nutrition program other than this. That's just my opinion, but it's based on science. It's not based on wishful thinking.
Thank you. Of
Did
course.
that answer it okay? Did that answer
Oh, yeah,
it all?
I love it. I'm
Great, great.
I am just so keen.
Cool. Anybody else?
Oh, there's so many questions coming in. I can't type fast enough. Okay, so I did want to address this one because I think this one's pretty important. Somebody asked about somebody who's going through cancer and radiation. Can cancer patients after chemo and radiation ever do nutritional fasting again?
Absolutely. But one of the most critical, so here's the one thing about a cancer patient, okay? And this is from my brilliant colleague, probably one of the top oncologists in the world that actually did a clinical study on this. And one of the last things you ever want a cancer patient to do is to lose weight. And one of the best things that they can do is to, and of course, part of the problem with chemo and radiation is they can't keep food down. I mean, I lost my younger brother to cancer, as you know, back in 2011, and he was 6'4", and when he died, he weighed 120 pounds. And I didn't know anything about any of this then. But one of the best things that they can do, again, is the whey protein, because, and especially if you incubate it, they can get themselves nourishment, which is really difficult when you're going through chemo and radiation. You lose your appetite, et cetera. But remember, you're not really drinking a shake. You're drinking pure liquid amino acids and the minerals and everything else. Obviously, we always err on the side of caution, and we want their oncologist to sign off on it. But a lot of times, and well, not a lot of times, yes, a lot of times I've actually had, post-cancer, whether it was a surgery or whether it was chemo or radiation, where, maybe after a week or so, as long as they weren't still on chemo or radiation, that they were able to do it. Now, a lot of times with women and breast cancer, they give you tamoxifen. That's a drug. And if you're on that, it's fine. You can still do, the detox, et cetera. Because remember, one of the things the detox is doing, it's also opening up the cell door to accept the nutrition. That's an important point because, and you can imagine when you have all those chemicals in your body, obviously you don't want to retain those if you can help it, So anyway, that's how I would answer that question. Okay.
For sure. So there's still lots of questions coming in about intermittent fasting. So there's still people that like to not eat for 12 hours or whatever.
That time restricted is complete. I'm going to get mad now. Complete bullshit. As a matter of fact, the studies unequivocally prove it's the dumbest thing you could ever do. That whole a time restricted. There was a big study done at the University of California of Santa Barbara. The chief researcher was on that. At the end of the research, he said it's an utter failure. So again, not my opinion, but that really makes me mad when I hear things like that, because this misinformation, it's insane. Okay. It makes no sense whatsoever. It sounds good in theory. It's like some of this stuff they're advertising on TV, like Golo and Noom and all. It's just horse manure. I had a lady call me today. She said, "Well, what do you think about putting a patch on my stomach to lose weight?" I went nuts. I was apoplectic. I levitated out of my chair. I mean, there's not one shred of scientific evidence. And like I said, I only speak to the science. I don't care. I don't have an opinion. If you want to do time restricted eating, do it. But the science says it doesn't work. Other than that, it's great.
Right. Yeah. And it's all based off of nourishment. You want to put those key elements in your body always.
Yep. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So yeah, never mind. No more questions on that. We're clear. We're clear. I think that's all I have for the questions that are coming in. I've addressed some. I mean, this is incredible information. And when you said, from the one hand, if you are helping people get started, rather than talk about nutritional company and my nutrients and this, that, and the other thing,
TDOS syndrome.
The best segue, and what I've learned from when I've started talking to you, is this is the easiest conversation you guys will ever have, is when somebody opens their mouth and they're talking to you about struggle. Why is my midsection big? Why am I tired? Why am I struggling? Why am I always getting the common cold? You can just say, you have TDOS. Everybody has it. You have it. I have it. And we can come down to that level of, familiarity with everybody. It's that common denominator that we all have. There's a spectrum of it. I have it on the lower spectrum. Somebody else might have it on the higher spectrum. People understand that. They get that. And you can just, as long as you know those 4 things, you can have any conversation in the world with anybody and help them understand what the real underlying issues are. And we have a simple solution. So I love that part. That has been, I think, what Nicole and I have really discovered through working with different coaches and different leaders and ourselves as coaches as well, is that this has been the beautiful bridge of simplicity. And I'm such a simple person. I love simplicity at its best. TDOS is the answer, you guys. We need to stop getting so muddled, like, what do I say? And just stop clamming up and just saying, oh my gosh, you have TDOS. That's okay, I have it too.
And don't confuse it with the vodka, by the way.
It's not. It's like, and then you can simply break it down and then have a conversation later, or bring them into a TDOS Tuesday and let Peter do the talking, or let me do the talking, or Nicole do the talking, and let us be your third party. You don't have to be the experts. I chose to be as immersed in this as I am, because I had that physical transformation myself. So it's very near and dear to myself, and Nicole as well. And so I've kind of imprinted on all of this. So I can talk very confidently doing a TDOS Tuesday, but you don't have to. You can just merge them into here and say, hey, let's come on to this talk on Tuesday night and we can chat about it. It's like the easiest thing ever. So we just want you to know that even though this information is a lot, but it's so great. It's such great information. But you don't have to be the expert. You just have to kind of know where to get that information. Peter, where can we get more information? What's the website?
Oh, they can go to the greenlawreport.com. It's a public service announcement. There's 60 articles on there. There's about 40 television interviews that I did. We don't have any links, so if you send someone there, we're not capturing your information. It's just, did it as a public service. It's just out there with a lot of this kind of information and a lot of interviews with some of these world-class people that I've worked with. It's free, and use it as a resource. It's
Okay.
kind of our gift to the world, okay?
Perfect. And then I would say get the books.
Well, of course, get my books. Come
Get
on.
the books. Get the books. Plug.
Shameless plug for me, but no. Well, listen, thank you two both very, very much. I'm going to slide my way home in this snowstorm, and hopefully we can do this again maybe in a month or so, okay?
Awesome. Thank you, Peter. You can break off. I'm going to stay on for a couple
All
more
right.
minutes to address.
Good night, everyone. Goodbye.
Night.
Thank you.
Okay. Nighty night.
Thank
So
you.
if you guys have to leave, go ahead. I just wanted to address a couple more questions that are on here. Somebody said that they're still confused. They hear that it's BCAAs that cause the glutathione to incubate. What do the 5 proteases do? Is that part of it? So the shakes that have the enzymes, the proteases, that's what is the incubation process. That's what's doing the chemical process. Warm water and enzymes is creating this chemical process for 45 minutes that's breaking down the protein and turning it into amino acids. So unless your shake has enzymes, it does not incubate. Vegan does not incubate. The probe, some of you are still doing the bedtime belly buster, does not incubate. It is only the isoline with 24 grams of protein and the isoline pro that you can only incubate. Okay, period. What are the names of the books again was the next question. So we've got, the first one is, this is the first book you should be starting with, Why Diets Are Failing Us. You can get them on Amazon. The second one is TDOS, TDOS Syndrome. The third one is TDOS Solutions. And the fourth one is Your Third Brain. Those are the books on Amazon. Anything else before we break off? You guys have been awesome. Oh, I did want to say one thing is that the calls are now starting at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard. I know there's some people in the East that really wanted to come in a little bit earlier because it is later there. So we are changing the time to 7 o'clock. There are still people coming in really, really late. And even though there are some things beyond our control that we can't make it on time, I am going to ask you to honor our speakers when they do come on, that you come on time. And because it makes noise when I'm letting people in, and it's distracting. Some people aren't muting their microphones, and it's very distracting to the person who's doing the speaking. And then, so I just want us all to be really mindful and respectful of the time and try to be on here when the time does start. So it's 7 p.m. Pacific Standard when we do our TDOS Tuesdays. Okay, just wanted to make that clear. Okay, so anything else? No? Yeah.
Yes,
Great call. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just wanted to follow up with Peter Greenlaw. He said they could have the shakes, but he didn't really address whether they could do the fasting to get rid of the toxins later after chemo and radiation.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't want to address that after chemo and radiation. I'm not sure. Definitely the shakes. Nicole, did you have any thoughts that you wanted to add to that?
You know, I've left that up to individual people when I've coached them. And, you know, I've had people tell me that they feel like they wanted to and they felt like they couldn't wait to, you know, get some fasting done. And I think that, you know, I've suggested to people that they give it an amount of time and to ask their doctor about it. And yet I can tell you that when people, the results that I've had with people that I've worked with have done great. But I've also had people doing, you know, incorporating and reading books and doing things, you know, vegetable juicing. I mean, a lot of different things, because when people are on a path to really heal their body, there's a lot of things involved. They've got to get their body alkalized. They've got to get a lot of toxins out of the body. I mean, it's a big project. And so it was within, you know, using other things too. And I think that's, I hesitate to say if it's a yes or a no or whatever, because to me, I mean, and again, we want to be really careful in this environment, in this context. I don't want to say that here I am, you know, a lay person telling people to go do something, you know, that's especially when they're under the care of a physician, even though I truly believe that people have responsibility, we have responsibility for our own health and our own bodies. But again, I've coached and I've worked with people that have done great. So I'll
Thank
just
you.
say that. But that's my own personal experience, and they chose to do what they did and felt great doing it. So
That's good to know. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. And yep, every Tuesday night we do TDOS Tuesday. Typically, Nicole and I host, and every once in a while we'll bring Peter on. Yeah, so have fun with the info that you received tonight. Game-changing information, everybody. Game-changing. Okay, peace out, everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sondra, can you and I stay on real quick?
For sure.
Well, sure.
For sure. Once everybody hits that end button.
Yeah.
My top, isn't it?
Look at you, gorgeous.
Thank you.
Gorgeous. You're gorgeous.
Okay, one second. Let me just, maybe somebody, remove. Report,
So happy to see Nancy on tonight.
remove, and I'm not going to report. Okay,
There we
good.
go.
So, yeah, I just removed them. They
Recording. Stop recording.
Hi. Good evening. Good night, everybody. Thank you for joining. Okay, bye.